Okay. I have been in a number of conversations where parents are very concerned about their child's school. I'm going to talk to you today about 6 reasons why your child's school cannot be trusted. This is a very important concept. This is a very important topic. Very important. We got to talk about this today because this is a big deal. Let me say something first before I start talking about these reasons. And I have a lot to get through, so I'm going to say this quickly. I want first for parents to understand that nobody is going to take care of your child like you. It is very scary having this child with special needs, this child who has is very special, has very unique needs, right? There are special things about this child that you know they need, and only you know how to get them what they need. And then trusting strangers to nurture your child the way you will. It's very scary, okay? So many of us, even if you don't have, even if it's not a special needs child, many of us nitpick about who's going to care for our child, right? We do. It's just the way we are. So some parents, they're not going to trust the school regardless, right? But eventually you have to trust somebody with your kid eventually, whether they're small, whether they're old. You know what I mean? You have to have some kind of collaboration with some educational institution eventually. But it's different when you have a child with special needs. But special ed schools are just different, okay? So I want to talk to you about some of these red flags that you have to watch out for specifically. And they're likely some things that you haven't even thought of. And that's why we're having this discussion today. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to watch out for: lack of transparency and communication. This is a big deal. Okay? Let me tell you what this looks like. Avoids or delays sharing IEP updates. So we talked before about IEPs. Those of you who don't know, an IEP is an individualized education plan. All special needs kids have this, right? There are other names for it, but for the sake of the conversation, we're going to talk about the IEP, okay? It's an educational plan for your child, okay? So what happens is we sit down, we go through for an hour and a half or so, and we talk about the plan for the child, right? There are times whenever that IEP might be updated before the end of the semester. They have to tell the parent in writing. But if they're not doing that, that's a problem. They avoid or delay sharing those IEP updates. That's an issue. So for instance, an IEP might say, I don't know, prompts child to go to the bathroom 3 times before lunch. Okay? That might, if you have a child that's, I don't know, 7 years old and they struggle with remembering to go to the bathroom, right? And that might be an IEP item. Prompts child to go to the bathroom 3 times before lunchtime, right? And they change that IEP goal to 6 times because 3 times isn't enough. And they change it. This is just off the top of my head. Any changes to the IEP needs to be updated in writing, and the parent needs to know. Another change in communication or a lack of transparency doesn't allow parents to observe classrooms or meet with teachers frequently. That part. Parents get to observe classrooms at any time. Now, depending on the school, depending on the district, you might have to make an appointment in advance, but it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't have to wait weeks, or you should be able to easily be able to observe the classrooms or meet with the teachers whenever you need to. Provides inconsistent or vague responses regarding your child's progress. If you come to pick your child up on a Friday, or you just stop in and you say, hey, I was wondering how my child was doing, and they're too busy, they don't have that update, I'll get it to you next week, then they have all these excuses as to what. No. Refuses to share incident reports or behavior logs. Now that's a big deal too. You have every right to know what's going on in that classroom regarding your child. That's basically it. Any lack of transparency or communication means that they are not sharing with you what's going on in that classroom with your child. That's a red flag. The second red flag: untrained staff or uncaring staff. What does that look like? Teachers and aides that lack proper autism training or understanding. You know what that looks like. They're confused about, why he's acting like that, or why whenever you come over to him, he acts weird. You can tell. That's why whenever you want to observe the classroom, they don't want you to come in, because they have aides that don't really know how to interact with children with autism. See what I'm saying? That's why you got to keep an eye on that. Staff dismisses or ignores your concern about your child's needs. Uses outdated or harsh discipline techniques instead of positive reinforcement. That's a big one for me. So even as a daycare director with kids that didn't have special needs, I was real careful about that. So for instance, if I had a child, and I did this with my own kids, because before I was a director in a center, I had my own daycare at home. So you have to understand, at home I had my own 2 children, and the state allowed me to have up to 6 other kids. Okay? So if I had 8 kids in my home and it was just me, I treated them all. Fun fact, my first son called me Miss Teray for the first 4 years of his life, because all the kids in my daycare called me Mr. He didn't call me mom. He called me Miss Teray. Fun fact. Okay. But anyway, harsh discipline. So for instance, if I had a kid, I don't know, throwing toys, instead of me saying, hey, stop throwing all those toys. You don't stop. That wasn't my, perspective. That wasn't my discipline method. Instead, I would say, we're not allowed to throw toys. Because I never wanted to target a child and make them feel singled out. And I wanted to explain to them that it's not just you that's not allowed to throw toys. None of us are allowed to throw toys. So it's not just you, and I don't want them to feel isolated. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. I was just trying to communicate to them what the rules were. So to me, it's an outdated and harsh discipline technique. There are some, you know what I mean, that if some of the new people or the untrained people don't know about, they don't understand how to properly address kids with autism if they're not trained correctly. Does that make sense? And high turnover rate for special education teachers and aides. That's a red flag. If you, at the beginning of the semester, you meet the staff, you know who's working with your kids, and then 3 months later they have new aides, and then 2 months after that they have new, that's a red flag. The third red flag: unsafe or unstructured environment. Reports of bullying, isolation, or mistreatment of children with disabilities. Reports of mistreatment of kids with disabilities. That's not okay. No clear safety protocol for meltdowns, elopement, or sensory needs. Elopement. For those of you who don't know, elopement is whenever the kid disappears. Let me tell you this quick story. This is going to be a long one today, because we have a lot to cover. Whenever my son was in elementary school, there was a kid in his class, and me and his mom were friends. And the kid climbed out of the window, and he was down the street. That's considered elopement. His mom, when I tell you, she hit the roof. She's like, you guys have like 6 kids in the classroom and 3 adults. Nobody saw him climbing out of the window. My kid was down the street. The heck? What happened? There's no clear safety protocols for elopement. He just has access to the open window and he can climb out. That's a red flag. Overcrowded classrooms with minimal one-on-one support. That's a state regulation issue. I know that just from being a daycare director. There are state regulations regarding that. Okay. Again, red flag number 1, that's why they won't let you in the classroom whenever you want to go. And I would often not make appointments in advance. I would just show up. Hi, I just happened to be in the neighborhood. I was wondering if I could just drop into the classroom today. If your child goes to a school and they won't let you drop in, find out why. Yeah. Lack of sensory-friendly spaces or accommodations. Every autistic support classroom or department should have sensory spaces or accommodations. All of them should. My son's school had a calm down room, and it had a space, a corner in the classroom with soft, cushy pillows where the child can sit by themselves and just relax until they felt better to come back to the classroom activities. Kids with autism need that. Okay. The 4th red flag, poorly managed IEP and accommodations. Doesn't follow the IEP or frequently fails to provide listed services. Frequently fails to provide listed services. Listen, whenever I tell you I held them accountable, there were times whenever I would show up to my son's IEP and it would list, remember I told you this in another video, they would list the teachers that needed to be at this IEP. All of the people, the staff who my son sees, the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, all the different, like the school counselor, the people, you know what I mean, who work with my son. There maybe be like six individuals. And I'd show up to the IEP meeting and there would be only 3 teachers sitting in front of me. Where's everybody else? Oh, yeah, so-and-so is in a meeting and so-and-so is in a conference she's on a call with a parent. Oh, okay. How long are they going to be? Because they're supposed to, like, we all agreed to this meeting time, right? Did we all agreed that we could be at this meeting? Didn't we? Oh, yes, something came up. Okay, so do we need to wait 10 minutes for them? Well, we have a meeting after this one. Okay, well then I guess that this meeting is going to run over and you guys are going to be late to that next meeting because they agreed to be at this one, so they need to be here. Yeah, because we're not going to have frequently fail to provide service. No, because they're not going to miss this meeting because they're not going to fail to list the services that they provide for my son and the plans going forward for this meeting. This is what it means to advocate for your child. Because for all I know, I don't even know what services they provided for my son up until now and what services they plan to provide for my son moving forward if they don't come to the meeting. Do you see what I'm saying? And I don't plan to reschedule because we've had this meeting on my schedule for the last 2 months and everybody agreed that they were available. So the fact that they decided that they'd rather do something else, that's a problem. Either go get them or we'll wait for them and they need to hurry up because everybody's time is valuable. That's a red flag. If everybody decides they're not available all of a sudden, that means the IEP is poorly managed. You see what I'm saying? What else? They push you to reduce or remove necessary supports. What kind of supports? The speech therapy, the occupational therapy, or the extra time. So if during the IEP they say that your child needs extra time for testing, because just because your son has or your daughter has autism, they still have to test them for the standardized testings for the state requirements. But for whatever reason, it states that your child might need extra time for testing. But if during the IEP they're saying, well, they don't really need extra. No. Why are you trying to push me to reduce or remove necessary supports? Or saying, what? Your child is doing so well in speech, he doesn't really need a speech therapist. What? If they're trying to push you to convince you that your child doesn't need what they need. Remember a couple videos ago, I told you that the school district tried to tell me that my son could be mainstreamed when he really does need these supports? That part. That's a red flag. Ignores sensory needs, dietary restrictions, or communication preferences. Don't ignore the fact that I told you that my son is gluten-free. Let me tell you a quick story. We don't eat beef or pork. We don't eat beef or pork. My son went on a field trip with the school. I packed him a lunch because I don't know what you're going to feed him at the zoo. He likes the zoo. But here's the lunch that I packed for him. They went to the zoo, they came back, they had like 2 hours of school left. They called me when they got back and said that he was sick. I said, he's sick? What are his symptoms? They said, oh, he's throwing up. I said, he's throwing up? He was fine this morning. What did he eat at the zoo? He had a hot dog. He had a hot dog? Why would you feed him my child a hot dog? You're ignoring his dietary restrictions. Well, he wanted a hot dog. Why would you give my son a hot dog when I told you to feed him what I sent him? That's a red flag. Because that means that the teachers, the school, is not willing to collaborate with the parent. It's in writing in his file. You already know what he can't eat. Why would you ignore what? And now he's sick, and now you want me to come get him because of what you did. Red flag. The fourth red flag. How many flags? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on flag number 5. Punitive and harmful practices. Like what? Uses restraint or seclusion as a behavior management tool. This is tricky because for kids with some behavioral problems, if they're snapping out, they're biting, they're hitting, they're punching, they have to be restrained. But there's a way to do it. That's a whole nother video. Okay? So in that case, the parent knows about the restraint techniques. They signed a waiver regarding that, and they know about it in advance. That's something completely different. But if you know your child and you find out your child is being restrained just because the teacher's upset, that's a problem. Okay. Or seclusion as a management tool. So your child was, I don't know, the parent or the teacher was just angry with your child because your child did something that they didn't like, and now your child is made to stand outside in the hallway by themselves because the teacher was mad. Remember, we had to do that back when we were in kid. Go stand in the corner. Remember that? But for autistic children, that's not. Shames or isolates children for stimming, sensory overload, or meltdowns. So for those of you who don't have children with autism, stimming is whenever they have their quirkiness. So for my son, he used to take a pencil and rock, and he used to go like this. Or at home, he would do this with a hanger. That was his thing. It calmed him down and made him feel better. He needed to have a hanger or a pencil. Okay. Or they hum, or they do something weird with their fingers, or they shake their head, or they do these clicking sounds with their mouth. For every kid is different. But if the teacher is shaming or isolates children for stimming, or they're having a sensory overload, or they're having a meltdown, and they want to punish them for it, they have autism. So this is what they do. This is their normal, actually. They shouldn't be punished for it. That goes back to untrained or uncaring staff. It's a red flag. Forces ABA style compliance without respecting the child's autonomy. So ABA is applied behavior analysis. It's like a scientific way of dealing with behavior, right? Scientific. So the problem with that is that they're treating the kids in a scientific way, like, and they're analyzing them instead of treating them like human beings and trying to understand how they feel and treating them accordingly. Like, I don't know about you, but I want my child to be treated like a person with feelings. And I want you to try to help my son understand what's going on instead of saying, well, I read about what you're doing. Don't treat my son like a science experiment. You know what I'm saying? Discourages parental advocacy or questions about disciplinary actions. So this is what I was talking about last week about collaborating with the parent. If you don't talk to me about my son cussing at school, how can I, you know what I mean? How can I help him with what's going on at school? Or give me the opportunity to advocate for what's going on with him. Instead, if you see him doing some type of behavior, you won't even give me the opportunity to allow you to know what's going on at home, to help you to understand or describe where this behavior is or isn't coming from. Does that make sense? The last red flag: gut feeling and parent feedback. Other autism parents share concern about mistreatment or lack of support. Don't ignore that. Have you ever, as a parent, tried to warn another parent about what was going on, and they're like, well, that wasn't my experience. I mean, I'm just gonna, just go along with. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You'll figure it out sooner or later. Don't ignore whenever another parent is trying to tell you something about their experience. Now, some parents just like to nitpick. Some people are just complainers. Everything's wrong with everybody. Something's wrong with everything. Some people are just. But whenever parents give you a tidbit of information, take that and put it in your back pocket. Save it for a rainy day. All right? Use your judgment regarding that. Your child seems afraid, anxious, or withdrawn when discussing school or whenever you watch them interact with certain people at school. You know your child. Again, we all know that children act one way at school and another way at home, you know. But, you know, we all can feel comforted whenever we take our children to school and we watch them interact with their teachers and the aides, and when they see their teachers, they have a big hug for them and they smile and they truly love their teachers. That warms my heart because I know that my child is in good hands because my son has a good reaction to his teacher. But if my son sees his teacher and he withdraws, pay attention to that. The school seems more concerned about controlling behavior than supportive learning. There's a difference. I don't want you so much to try to control my son's behavior. I'd rather you try to teach him how to adapt and understand in order to change behavior. There's a difference. What is the school's focus? Pay attention to that. And when your gut tells you something, trust that. I'm not talking about being paranoid, but trust your gut. Don't be worried about asking questions and, showing up more often and, can I get a visit with that teacher and can I talk to you for a couple minutes and are you available? That kind of thing. Can you tell me again what that means? Can I ask a question? Okay, can you explain that further, please? Yeah. All right. So I hope this helps. I know this was a little longer, but you got to know because I keep talking to parents who they're like, I don't like my son's school. I don't like my daughter's school makes me nervous. Know why you don't like their school. Know why the school makes you nervous. But hopefully this will give you some reasoning, some guidance as to what you should be looking for and what changes you could possibly make in your son or daughter's classroom. Okay? I hope this helps. Like this video for me, and I'll see you in the next video.